Morning, everybody, and welcome to the FBC World Cup special. Well, it will be special later on anyway. For the first 15 minutes of today, we're going to talk Bristol City stuff because Bristol City do Bristol City things, even if had to wait very patiently. A lot's happened. After that, myself, David Potier, Adam Taylor, and Mark Tubby, welcome back. We'll get into World Cup stuff and why. This week, I was struggling slightly to get into the feelings of the World Cup, and I went for a walk and decided to play some World Cup songs. I was feeling it, I got myself in the mood, all of a sudden reliving the memories, reliving the who's, the whats, the wheres, the pain, the suffering in general. And I thought today would be a good opportunity to just talk about World Cup things we've been through and then just look ahead to this tournament. But let's get down to business. First of all, Bristol City stuff. Adam, Ellis is in the building. This week, we've seen an interview from him. What were your thoughts and impressions?
I thought it was a very impressive interview, to be honest with you, Dave, and it sort of got my enthusiasm back. I know there's obviously been a lot of, or what we feel has been a lot of time in between any announcements being made. I think that interview, for me, I think you can relate to it. I know there were a few Mark Ashton-esque buzzwords, but ultimately, I like the use of the word elite. This is a guy that knows what it takes to get to where we want to go, which gives me a lot of faith. And I think he came across really, really well. And it just, as I said, it for me, it really got my enthusiasm back throughout a sort of period in the off season after Roy that had, I don't know, felt longer than it should have. But now he's officially in the building. I think there's a lot to look forward to with it.
David, I think Adam speaks for a lot of people actually with a feeling of enthusiasm. I'm not quite in that same bracket, but do you feel the same? Are you someone that has that enthusiasm for the next season based on what you've like the interview?
No. I thought, look, the content was good. I was somewhat on our little WhatsApp group. I was somewhat disparaging, saying he looked like Benny from Crossroads, that side profile. I think other people say he looks like Peter Ridsdale's love child, but that's by the by. I thought the content was good. He said all the right things. And for us, with him, it's a little bit like getting the chief engineer from McLaren, and we're little Toyota. We want to have a go at winning a Grand Prix. So if you bring the chief engineer in from McLaren into Toyota, you've got to surround him with people that can make the parts of the engine add up to make something substantive. So I'll start to believe when we see things happening with the squad, because, we're getting to that stage now where things have to move. Countdown to the season is getting ever closer. World Cup's going to get in the way. But I was impressed with him. I thought he said all the right stuff. And we'll come on to the manager as well. But no, I mean, look, he knows his stuff. So let's see what happens. But it's all about the tools to make it happen.
Mark, a lot's happened since you were last here. 6 months ago, promotion chasing, looking at the playoffs. If we told you when you were back on the podcast we'd be in this situation, I'm not sure you'd necessarily believe it. Having heard Ellis speak, sorry, how are you feeling?
I didn't actually listen to the interview. I'm sorry. All I know is a very capable guy, got a good CV. But again, I think our main problems are: can we keep players fit during the season? Have we got the wherewithal to spend money in the transfer market? And are we going to score enough goals to get in the top 8? It's the same old problems. But I mean, the major focal point has got to be fitness. Our fitness record is appalling in terms of keeping players on the pitch. I mean, if you look at Max Bird, missed the majority of last season. Williams is doing a farewell tour most of the time. It's if you can't keep your squad fit, you've got no chance, and that's the biggest problem we always face. That the biggest mystery at Bristol City is, can we keep the players fit?
Sure. And Adam, Mark touched on some of the things for the new manager in the building. Welcome to Skubala. We haven't heard him speak yet, but we've seen the work he's done with Lincoln and how their fans feel about him. What are your thoughts of getting him in the building? Pleased enough? Happy with the process that you've seen or that you've understood to have happened, shall I say?
I guess touching on the points that all of you guys have made, ultimately the proof is in the pudding. However, what encourages me most about the Skubala appointment is his previous links with Ellis, the fact they worked together. If we're looking at it from an angle that we're perhaps a little bit behind the curve, what I would like to think, and again, the optimist in me would probably take a stance on that they know each other well. So anytime we have lost, I would like to think that their synergy, the relationship they've got, will reflect on how we move going forward, and we'll be able to do so quite quickly. So I am encouraged about it, but this is a guy that also, we can't discredit what he's done at Lincoln. I think the key thing for me, and it does touch on what Dave said about having the right tools, we need to be able to try to replicate what he created at Lincoln. If we can't, then we need to take the best bits as a club, because ultimately it's not a case of, look, this guy's got a great record at Lincoln or had a great record last season, surpassed our points tally under Cottrell when obviously we had one hell of a side. So I don't think you can discredit what he's done, but ultimately I don't think it's as simple as a case of, look, he's at the wheel now, go and do your thing. We should have done our due diligence, and I'd like to think that with Ellis on board, we have done, and they will know how to recreate what was good and what was not so good at Lincoln, and how to merge it into a bigger club, because obviously the pressure that will come at City is entirely different budget, everything else that comes with it. But I hope that their relationship and Skubala's experience should hopefully bear fruit.
David, is it a coincidence? Well, it's not a coincidence, but what are your thoughts on the process of the fact that Ellis is seen as a people person, identifies in that way, and the first thing that he's talked about when it comes to Skubala is a people person, a good human, excellent human, an elite human even. Is that the way that we're going now? Do you think that the board, as it were, have understood, hey, we're getting this wrong and we need to be more upfront and honest with the fan base? Even if we never get the apology, are you pleased with this change of direction?
Well, look, it's not really a change of direction, is it? Because when Dean Holden was appointed after a rigorous process, he was labelled as a decent human, which he is. Let's make no bones about that. Dean Holden is a decent bloke. The other buzzword that was coming out, just reflecting back on that Ellis interview, and I'm sure Skubala will say the same thing. Boss said it on an interview this week. He said it at Senior Reds last week. We keep talking about this community. We're all part of a community. So they're trying to draw us back in. And in fairness, the season ticket sales, there was one season ticket left in Lower Lansdowne centre block and about 20 in the block I'm in, just to the Atio side of that. They're trying to build bridges, but they're like politicians. They're never going to say they get it wrong or anything like that. I think the key thing about Skubala, I'm excited about him. I think he was second choice. I think they went for Elphick first, and he was hedging his bets because at the time of his interview, he didn't know that he was going to be Areola's assistant at Liverpool. I don't know if that's been confirmed yet. But Joe Pontin makes a point here on the text feed. What about that Skubala hasn't brought any of his staff with him? And Pete Hinton of one of the other podcasts did a good interview with somebody from one of the Lincoln podcasts up there. That could be quite critical, and we all know how ineffective Mark Robbins has been without Adi Vivash. And I think the other thing as well, picking up on what the person from the Lincoln podcast said, who watches them, is that he's very, very tactically aware. And I have to say, I think at League One, there's a slight more tactical naivety at that level than there will be in the Championship. So I'm excited for him. He's done 2.5 good seasons at Lincoln. He's done more than what Manning did. He's certainly done, he's up there, I guess, on Lee Johnson's standard, but he seems a decent bloke. We said that about Struber, decent bloke. Let's see what he can do, because we're a very different fish to Lincoln. And I wouldn't mind betting that at least one Lincoln player will be lining up for us before the first international break or the end of the transfer window in September.
Mark, Skubala, thoughts? What are your? How do you see?
It's nice to get a manager who stars on the rise. I mean, I think when I heard we were looking at potentially looking at John Mousinho, I've got my head down, but a manager who far exceeded expectations at Lincoln. I mean, for a little club, punching above their weight. We're in a conference only about 10 years ago. He's done amazing things. So I think we've sometimes we thought we could go for a Dice or a Scott Parker or somebody like that. We've got no chance. We're shopping in Aldi. There's another buzzword for you. So I think that we had to really manage our expectations, and these the best that there's around. A real tactical, bookish coach style rather than a manager. And I think good luck to him. I think Steve Lansdowne liked the fact that he got Bart. He can get the best out of a small budget. That's probably one of the big plus points with Steve. So let's hope he does well in a very tough championship. But I mean, if you look at the fact that Hull managed to get sixth place last season, anything is possible. And I like to think at least we can finish in the top 8. But again, it comes down to fitness. Words mean nothing. It's results on the pitch that are everything. Whether you've got a politician-style manager or somebody with lots of charisma, it makes no difference. It's all about results on the pitch.
I think you summed it up nicely with a star on the rise. And if you as a football club stop that star from continuing to rise, then you have to look at yourself. And in the past, we've had different managers come in, changing tack and not having that progression plan. My expectations is that if Skubala comes in and is successful, eventually he will leave. The next person that comes in needs to fit that same process, not a flip it and reverse it and do something again and again and again, because this is a waste of everyone's time. We've got these people in the building. This is not something that we're going to see instantly in August. We might play wonderfully in game 1. It doesn't mean it's great. It might not go well. It doesn't mean it's poor. This is an evolution over time, not a one-stop shop. Everything is fixed. And I think as fans, we have to be a little bit patient with that and accept it, because as you said, Mark, it's not all of his players even. It's going to take time to get his squad. Championship managers don't always get that amount of time. This should be an exception to give him that time, I think. Which brings me on
we're
nicely,
not
Adam.
Watford, so at least he should get some time.
No, exactly.
But
Now-
are we not saying, chaps, and we said this towards the end of last season when we knew we were going to have somebody new, that realistically, okay, we've got 8th place to aim for, which we didn't have because it was 6th for the last 20 odd years. But this season is going to be one of transition, and we've got to be patient. And therefore, beating last season's points total has got to be the first objective. Ergo, we ought to be close to 8th. But I don't see it being a remarkable turnaround unless we go out and improve the squad significantly, which equals cash.
Well, I think that the patient game depends on the moves that they make. If Knight and Bird have not signed extra contracts, they've not extended, and they're still in the building on September the 1st, all of a sudden you're not being patient. You have expectations. If they're open and honest and say, look, they wouldn't sign, so we've had to move them on. We're looking, this is a project over a few years. You can get on board with it. But that communication is absolutely vital. Which brings me on to one of the other players. Adam, Sinclair Armstrong left this week. What do you think that means for Sam Bell going forward? Does that change anything?
I don't think it changes anything. It definitely changed my moods. I think maybe that's where my enthusiasm's come back from. But no, I mean, I think the fact that this has been done early, not just the fact he's out the door, we seem to have recouped a reasonable fee for him, is good news. And I'd like to think that we're now trying to get our house in order. We're obviously trying to get ourselves to a point where I know Steve Lansdowne in his famous interview a while ago got very personal when he sort of said that everyone works bloody hard at the club. It's not about working hard necessarily. I don't doubt anyone's working hard. It's how we work smarter. So, that doesn't necessarily mean a big budget. It's how we use it. In terms of Sam Bell, I don't think it necessarily changes anything, although that will depend on whether Skubala wants to play with 2 up top, where he would potentially see Bell. I wouldn't say it changes anything in terms of Sam Bell, because he's more adaptable than Armstrong. He can obviously play either side, could potentially play down the middle, as a second striker. So I don't think it changes anything for him. But I guess a lot of it does depend on which way Skubala wants to go, whether he goes two up top or whether he prefers to play with one down the middle.
Okay, I get that point. And David, do you think that Reece will be the main man going into next season, or are you expecting an advance on
If he is, then it's been not a particularly inspiring window. I was just thinking while Adam was talking there and looking at one of the names that's come up. I mean, if over the next 4 weeks, we got Knight and Bird to sign new contracts, we went out and we signed Ellis Sims. I'm just picking him as a random name, but somebody like him from Coventry, because he's probably not good enough. He's going to be surplus to requirements up there. And we brought in either the Lincoln goalkeeper, Wickens, I think it is, or Sam Tickle has been mentioned from Wigan. That would excite me. Throw in a couple of loan players from Premier League, maybe a wing back and somebody else. Then the squad's starting to look okay. But if they can't get Knight and Bird to sign, and if we're starting next season if we're starting in 2 months' time with Emile Reece still leading the line, we failed. I think Sam Bell will get a new contract, and he's probably in a comfort zone. He's going to accept it, even though he might find himself warming the bench most of the time. So that's my view. If Reece is leading it, it's been a failed window.
Mark, thoughts on how our striking options look going into next season? What you're expecting? Not necessarily the specific players, but what does it look like to you next season?
I think it looks really, really tough at the moment. If we look at, Emile Reece will score you 10, 11 goals a season in the Championship, but really that's not going to be good enough to take you further. He really needs 15 to 20, but you need a good backup striker or backup strikers. I think Sam Bell's done okay. But is he going to take you up to the next level? No, I think we need to bring players in. So I don't think Sam Bell is the answer. I think he might get another contract. More of a fox in the box player really than somebody who can lead the line. Hasn't got the physique to play as a natural number 9, but scored some vital goals last season. I think he scored 4 in the end, which he called Sinclair Armstrongs, which just shows you how thin our options are. We really need to get somebody in. Nahki Wells was probably 5th choice striker in his last season at the club, but he managed to push himself in front of Armstrong and Maleo to be our best option off the bench. But yeah, unless we solve our striker problems, having somebody who's the equal of Reece, then we're going to be chasing most of the next season.
What I would say is that sometimes life happens when you're making plans, and over the course of this season, if you look at how we started last season, Falley's not in the building anymore, Cornick is gone, Sinclair Armstrong is gone. All of a sudden, the decks have been cleared. They now have an opportunity to bring someone in. My argument with Bell was believing that, as much as I wanted Sinclair Armstrong to be gone, didn't really see it happening. And I didn't see how Bell's place would fit. All of a sudden, if you can bring in that major competitor with Reece, there's an argument that Bell fits in that, and maybe even another one. But the decks have been cleared. Just so happens it's just the right time for the new people in the building. So when they talk about these standards and values, and it even comes down to recruitment, this is a great opportunity if they're willing to put the money in. And that's why fans will be watching. They'll be intent to see what their opportunities are, what their ideas are. Will we be making statement signings, or will it be a slow process while we try and figure things out? Is it all about this season? How much do they want to put into this season? It will be a very, very interesting summer, that's for sure. Now, let's switch it. It's time. It's time for England. It's time for major championship talk. It's time for World Cup talk. Adam, first question for you. What do the summer championships mean for you?
A great deal. I've always really been really excited by the World Cups. Only just now, last night's game, as we discussed before, has probably not really whet the appetite. But as a general rule, I'm always really looking forward to the European Championships and the World Cup. So, I would love to see England win it. I've always sort of from a young age, I think that's probably the side of football, along with obviously going live to watch City, that really engaged me. Like, even if you go back, and we'll talk later on about sort of previous tournaments that I wasn't even born when they. But I think the nostalgia that goes with it. You look back at some of the great names, players, etc. So yeah, it's for me. I'm really looking forward to it, but I think it's probably more in hope than expectation. But yeah, of course, I'd absolutely love it if we won it.
Yeah, David, what did they mean to you, the summer championship?
Oh, frustration, disappointment, expectation dashed. Oh, they're all words that you use to describe Bristol City. So many parallels there. Yeah. I'll be honest. I'm not feeling the love at the moment. And when we talk about past tournaments, I'll tell you the very first one back in 1966 when I was 10. I'm not feeling the love. And watching England last night, I know it was only a friendly, but when we're starting with Jordan Henderson in the side and Alex Scott is they don't even give him 15 minutes when they used a completely different side. And back in the day, England was stars. You knew the team from back to front. If you look at that second half team that went out there, most of them, I think in the first half, 5 of them, but most of them, I wouldn't know them if I walked past them in the street. Whereas back in the day when England were, right at the forefront, and we still are to a point, but you knew every single player. Whereas now it's, to me, I've got no plans to watch the group games other than England. I'm not going to revel in the festivity of football. I think there's far too many games, 72 group matches before we get down to the business.
Yeah.
And looking at the schedule, they're not on at the greatest times, which is great. So there's not going to be too much disruption. But, when you look at, I don't know, some of the games on there, they're not going to draw an audience. So I'll be honest, I'm not feeling it.
Well, by the end of this podcast, you will be.
Well, I am leaving early, Dave, as you know, because I've got to take somebody to the airport. Yeah.
Now, Mark, well, I'll tell you about mine first of all. The first tournament I can remember is the Euros would be 1992, World Cup wise 1994. What I remember about it is having to negotiate with my father a lot about my bedtimes, because being 10 years old, I wanted to watch the late night games. And quite often I had to go to bed earlier to be able to get up. And I learned the power of negotiations in that tournament. I remember cheering wildly when Ireland scored against Italy. I remember Stoichkov in Bulgaria. And that World Cup for me, while it was in America, as a 10-year-old, there was something magical about it. And I don't remember Italia 90. I don't remember anything about it. And when people talk about that one with great nostalgia and negativity almost about 94, for me, it's one that was an incredible tournament, but the World Cup final itself wasn't great. And the lasting image for me is when Baggio hits it over the bar and he's just stood there like the responsibility of the world just hits him. And it was in that moment that I understood what penalties mean to people. And as a 10-year-old, it was very, very impactful. Mark, what's the first tournament that you can remember?
It was 1978, Argentina. Great theme tune from the BBC. Can't remember what it was called, but dun, 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 dun.
That's the one.
And,
you got it.
But it's had some very interesting stories. I think it was probably an elite competition then. I mean, 16 teams as opposed to 48. We got a ridiculous number of teams trying to shoehorn everybody in, and it's going to be hard not to qualify from the first phase. But going through to the second phase, Argentina had to beat Peru by 3 or 4 clear goals, and they ended up by 5 goals. So they ended up winning 6-0. And there's a story about them giving a shipment of grain to the Peruvian government as a con. And it was played against the background of the Argentinian junta with people disappearing left, right, and centre. So very dark times for Argentina. In what wasn't a great tournament. No England.
Do you remember all the ticker tape coming down?
Yeah, toilet rolls coming down from the stands.
it was a fabulous game. It was a fabulous
But
game.
the Dutch getting beaten by the host for the second consecutive tournament, and what was the death of a great Dutch side. No Cruyff that time, but they managed to get through to the finals, and it was a shame they didn't win, because I think the Dutch were a team that everybody revered at that time. But yeah, I remember the Argentina finals in 1978. But yeah, it was played against a very, if you peel back the surface, it was a very dark background of what was going on in the country. If you compare it with things that we've seen in Qatar and Russia and some of the other nations that have held the World Cup, and games played in crumbling stadiums. Now stadiums are super stadiums. The pitches look like snooker tables, and everything seems wonderful. Back then, it wasn't the case. Fans treated like castle. So yeah.
Now, David, you have the honor, and a few of us hating you a bit. Your first World Cup is the peak World Cup for England fans.
Well, it wasn't. Let me tell you a quick little story here. It's summer of 1966, and my parents had zero interest in football. I didn't really have any interest either, so we were not a sporting family. And it played on July the 30th, 1966, and literally I live in Tickenham, and anybody who knows the road in Tickenham, there's a pub called the Star on the right on the corner there, the Nailsea end of Tickenham. And there used to be a little nursery. And the afternoon, I didn't realise it, I was out with my parents. They were in this nursery buying potting plants. And the bloke who was behind wasn't even a counter. He said, "Oh, you're the only people that have been in here this afternoon." And my dad said, "Well, why is that?" And he said, "Well, don't you know, it's the World Cup final." And he had, on a little black and white TV propped up on some books up in the top corner, flickering little thing, it was the World Cup final. I didn't even know what the final score was then. So I missed it. 1970 is probably the one that I got into. The first final, it was the Brazil-Italy final. It was obviously the Gordon Banks save from Pelé. I watched that one rigorously, and I used to assemble the paper rounds of Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont, who lived in Backlands Batch in Nailsea. They invited me to watch the cup final, the World Cup final, on their colour television.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you know that only about 600,000 people had colour TVs back then?
Yeah, well, there you go. So I watched that. So I was into it in every aspect. I had my wall chart, and as I say, over time, it sort of evaporated.
Do you know why I think that the 1971, like, even though I wasn't born, there's something about that England-Brazil game has magic. And if you think about three moments, you have the save by Banks, you have the tackle by Moore, and you have the handshake afterwards.
Yeah.
It comes across as a game of essentially two champions meeting and essentially taking a one-goal game. I think it was 1-0, right? And
Brazil won 1-0, but England still qualified. But then we had the disappointment in the next round of, I think we were 2-0 up against Germany, and we had Peter Bonetti in goal. I read somewhere this week that they reckon it was a CIA plot and gave
spike Gordon Banks drink. Yeah,
give Gordon Banks. And of course, you also had the situation where Bobby Moore was taken into custody for a short period because he'd allegedly nicked a bracelet in a jeweler's when the players were out shopping. So all the the media then was 150% different to what it is now. But that was the first disappointment when Gerd Müller gave Germany victory with that hook shot after England had been 2-0 up in that game, and deservedly so. They just collapsed.
Was it? If my nostalgia memory is not playing tricks with me as well, that was the first time that there were subs as well in tournaments, and Bobby Charlton had been taken off at 2-0, and people were like, "What were you doing that?" But players, they hadn't really got used to the importance of it, and they were thinking, "Oh, we can actually give them a bit of rest." But the moment that West Germany came back in that particular moment and scored the first one, it was kind of all downhill from there after 66, and then England not qualifying for a couple of years after. But at that particular moment, it was champions v champions. Now, Adam, when's the first one you can remember, tournament-wise?
I think tournament-wise would probably be similar to you, USA 94 just. But as you said, and I guess if we compare it to now, like, there's too many teams. It's ridiculous now. I think going back to that era, those times, even now, looking back on old moments that I wasn't here for, as Dave said, that's what captures your imagination as a football fan. That's that nostalgia, everything. That's what makes you fall in love with it. And I think the way in which it's gone now, especially with some of the teams, it's an absolute farce. But obviously, I digress. It's just going in a way that is not aligned with what I grew up loving. But 94 would be the first time vaguely, and then obviously when I probably really started to fall in love with it, Euro 96. But yeah, the first World Cup tournament, trying to get my head around or understand why England weren't there. But as you said, you remember those. I think it's Lechkov, wasn't it? The Bulgarian, Stoichkov, like those moments. It was magic. And as a young lad growing up loving football, it really did enhance the obsession, to be honest. And I remember supporting Ireland throughout it as well. Or for as long as they were in it, I wanted them to do well. So that was my first World Cup memory as such. So, but shame, obviously, England weren't in it.
Do you know, as a curious point, I don't know if my dad is listening to this right now, but he probably will later. I remember the qualifier at home against the Netherlands when I think England were 2-0 up and it was 2-2. And my dad went without me. I never went to an England game. I went to a couple of other friendlies, but that particular game, I was outraged that he went and I couldn't go. It was on a school night, and I just remember being sat at home watching it like, how can he go without me? This is a disgrace, And that's the emotions that get you when you're growing up, because it is the connection of people around you and the friends, and the summer championships bring you all together. Which leads me on to my next question. Where were you? What was your favorite tournament to watch, and how did you spend most of your time doing it? In my case, probably my favorite one to watch would have been the 2014 tournament. And basically, I decided to take the month off of work, go to Malaga. And with the times with Brazil, it was pretty much 6 p.m., 9 p.m., 12 o'clock. And for that tournament, for me, I'd gone on my own, and I met so many incredible people from different countries, sat down, once made the mistake against Uruguay of mocking the Uruguayans in front of the TV, and they certainly let me know it when they equalized. But there was a magic in that tournament for me, and it's memories that stuck with me. And while every tournament has its own moments, for me, that one as a whole is probably the one I've enjoyed the most. What about you, David? What tournament would you say that you've enjoyed the most as a whole?
Oh, as a whole, I mean, Italia 90 was good. I was still really excited about England then, to a point. I can remember seeing David Platt score the goal. I was on holiday in Benidorm at the time in a hotel, watching it with a big group of people there. I remember that. Obviously, the disappointment of the penalty miss that was in the semi-final, that was gut-wrenching, that was. And then there was a game against Cameroon as well, was that the quarter-final, and they had that mercurial player, Roger Miller. Mark's nodding his head there. But
nobody never knew how old he was, did they?
No, a bit like, who is it? That Kanu that used to play for Arsenal. He's probably in his late 40s or something like that. But that was one that you watched it all the way through, and no, England were there. They should have been there. We deserved to get to that final, but it wasn't to be. I actually did attend a World Cup in 1998 in France, and you say about disappointment. It was meant to be England's quarter final, but because we had David Beckham sent off against Argentina for that little raised kick, and then the penalty miss or misses, I can't remember, but nonetheless, I went for a day trip to watch what was meant to be England's quarter final. It turned out to be the game of the tournament, and my business partner Steve Vass and I, we took a charter flight from Stansted, landed at Marseille. We walked into the stadium. There was a lot of atmosphere, lots of Dutch people there, and it was Bergkamp at his best. It didn't really mean anything, but we felt the atmosphere. Then afterwards, there was a few hours to kill before the plane took us back. And the Dutch fans, they're something else. We gate crashed a couple of corporate parties and got some free drinks and what have you. But that's the closest that I've been to it, and what I remember. And I'll be honest, ever since then, it's just been, my interest has waned somewhat. But that was a good day. It should have been England's quarter final, but
Bergkamp's goal was, I think that was the goal of the tournament, David.
What's that, Mark?
I think Bergkamp's goal was the
Yeah.
goal of the
It
tournament.
was.
Steps
I think
inside
he
the
clipped it
defender
in.
and
Yeah.
hammered it in.
We
from a
were
long-range pass.
higher. Dave will appreciate this. Dave, we were higher than the highest terrace at La Rosaleda, Malaga Stadium. And
Yeah.
good luck to
Wow.
them this week in their 2 playoff games.
Tonight is the first one. They got serenaded off at the airport all the way along the motorway from Malaga.
Yeah.
Today is game 1, and then on Wednesday they've sold out the bucket load already. But that's for later. Adam, tell me about your favorite tournament, but not necessarily the football perspective, in the way that you lived it.
I think favourite in terms of how I remember, and those would have probably been Russia 2018, purely on the basis that my local football club opened, all my friends, family, etc. were there, and it was just all the kickoff times aligned. It was chaos, and it was just, I think as well at that point we had a slight bit of hope. It was new territory for me. I'd never seen England in a World Cup semi-final, so I've even got sort of, there was a camera set up and there's videos of that time, and I just remember the emotion and everything around it, being with the people that you want to be with to watch it. It was incredible, to be honest. I've always watched the games with my friends, but generally sort of if you're watching it between houses, which I usually do, some people go different places, but at that point everyone that I wanted to watch with was there, and we were all embraced, engrossed. And basically, it was a great summer. It was a great summer. So I would say that's my most fond memory. Not just from the football side, and as I said, it was new. Getting to a World Cup semi-final is obviously not every day for us, but I just think the whole sort of summer, the kickoff times, being around everyone I wanted to be, is probably the best memory. I would say. Obviously, there's been a lot of pain following England. I remember that probably up until the semis, the least sort of pain-free tournament, purely because of the enjoyment factor and everything else that went with it, of being around those you want to be with.
Exactly. Well put. Mark, what is your favorite goal, or what one comes to mind when you think of goals that you've really enjoyed in World Cups or Euros, as the case may be?
In World Cups, it's got to be Michael Owen's goal against Argentina, and that's in that round of 16 game in 1998. I think, we burst onto the scene. I think against Romania in the previous game that unfortunately we lost. When I think Kevin Keegan mentioned those famous words: "If anybody's going to win this game, it's going to be England." Just before Romania scored the winner. But I mean, the thing was, it had been built up so much. Owen scores near the end of the first half. I mean, Owen scores, and then Argentina scored from a free kick, from a well-worked free kick, and it was built up so much it was going to be a wonderful game, and then it went completely flat when Beckham kicked his foot out and got sent off, and had to live that down for the rest of his career. In terms of a best tournament, it's not the World Cup. It's got to be Euro '96 because of Three Lions, a song that they still sing in the stadiums now. You don't even see it singing World in Motion or any of the other dreadful songs that we've had in previous years. But Euro '96 was all about football's coming home. Really, the song hit the nail on the head. The nation got behind the team. There were some great moments. Probably the peak being against the 4-1 defeat of the Netherlands at Wembley. The semi-final was a massive disappointment. Gascoigne just missing the post, I think, when Darren Anderton played the ball across the 6-yard box. Probably, 10-year-old kids finishing at the bottom of their bed thinking they're going to reach that in their dreams, and it never happening. But Euro '96 was the tournament for me, for excitement and the nation getting behind the team. There's something about, I think, World Cups, it's just been a bit too distant in terms of the time and the number of teams, that you just can't have that special relationship with the tournament. But Euro '96 would have been my favourite, but World Cup gold, it would have been Michael Owen's superb effort against Argentina in '98. What a goal that was! Shame his England career was really wrecked by injury after that.
The thing that makes that goal so special is that when he gets the ball, you're thinking that he's got like no one in front of him, and out
Yeah.
of nowhere, like they've got another defender that's playing like behind the goalkeeper sweeper almost. He's so deep because he's terrified of Owen's pace.
But he's
It's
fearless,
something
isn't
else.
he? He's
Yeah,
18
and
years old, fearless. He just goes
yeah.
for it. And
In-
I mean, you look at play. I think we live in disappointment, and we're spoiled by Premier League football in the Championship. And you want players to make runs, and you don't see that. And you want players
Yeah.
to beat their man when they're playing on the wing. And he was just totally fearless, and just went for the goal, and scored one of the best goals in World Cup history.
No, sure.
From my
And
mind.
in
we're
terms
just-
of Euro '96, I think there's I've seen that Gascoigne one so many times, and I can't figure out how he doesn't score. You know, it seems so close to it, and you're thinking this is
Yeah.
definitely going in, and somehow he misses it. And I remember the anthem before the game. Paul Young goes to sing and realizes, well, I don't need to bother because the crowd is so into it. And in terms of football's coming home, I think there's a lot of people, well, I know there are from other countries that don't understand the meaning of the song. They think it comes from a place of English arrogance, that we're somehow going to win guaranteed. And it's nothing to do with it. Actually, it's a song about, we know we're probably going to suffer. We know we're going to have pain. We know that we've been through all these things, but maybe, just maybe, this might be the time that football comes home. The amount of international people, is football coming home now? Oh, I can't believe you'd sing a song like that. It's like, but you don't understand. It's not arrogance at all. And that's why the song sticks in people's minds year after year, until you now realize that it's 30 years since 30 years of hurt. And it's like, how much suffering do we have to take?
Yeah.
But the last few years we've got so close.
I
You know,
think
which brings me on
if
to
you go back, you could say in retrospect we were spoiled by 66. We won our home tournament, and of course every squad since then has had to live up to that, and that's the problem. And everybody will always be judged on 1966 until we win a World Cup or European Championships again. That's the problem. The beauty and the problem is 1966. Everybody's got to look up to that and be measured by that.
For sure. Adam, favorite World Cup game? Which game have you enjoyed the most? England or non-England, as you prefer?
Oh, there's been some crackers down the year. I think with England, there's not been that many enjoyable ones. I would probably say after '98, we tend to have. We've obviously not until Gareth arrived. We had a bit of a checkered record, didn't we? Really. I think in terms of. It's very hard to actually sit and watch England and relax.
Yeah.
I would probably say the most relaxed I probably got was, again, going back to Russia 2018 when we had Sweden in the quarters and we were 2-0 up. I think Maguire and Dele Alli scored. And I think that was the first time in such a big game for England that I can remember actually relaxing. Obviously, I think, as Mark said, you touch on Euro 96. I can remember England-Scotland, and that was just absolute. Well, it's just chaos. That was for me. I would probably say I was just about old enough to embrace that, and that would definitely be very, very high for me. In terms of England, I think in terms of relaxing, I think I would have to say Sweden. But aside from that, I think I'm struggling for any really enjoyable England games.
Yes, they're more of experiences, aren't they?
Yeah.
You don't get to enjoy watching England in World Cups because history has taught us that it doesn't end in a nice story.
No, exactly. And even if you remember, say, going back to 2018 again, we had Tunisia in the first game, and like Kane scored in the last minute, and we literally, that. Whilst every game is a difficult game, that shouldn't have gone to that. So it's even that you put through the ringer all the time with England.
I remember in 18 against Colombia when you have the Jordan Pickford unbelievable save in the last minute, and just for a moment I believe this is going to be it. We're actually going to get through, and then bang, we concede straight away. I remember being sat on my sofa and we've actually won a penalty shootout, and I told my wife, and it's like, we've won, right? It's finished. Yeah. I didn't even really celebrate instantly because it was like an out-of-body experience. Like, have we just won a penalty shootout? Has this really happened?
Yeah.
I definitely say that was up. That definitely has to be up there. But I remember just being emotionally exhausted, like everything from winning from Colombia to equalising in the
Yeah.
last kick to, as you said, the trauma of the penalties. But I just remember afterwards, like you said, that shock. But also, I was absolutely exhausted. My nerves were off the scale that night. I wouldn't say that was my most enjoyable, but a memorable. There's lots of memorable England ones.
Yeah.
So that's definitely up there.
So on the flip side of that, the moment that shocked you most, because like from my perspective, the Euro Championship game against Italy, we scored early, and it gave me that memory of the semi-final against in '96. Early goals for England don't tend to end well, but the one that shocked me most was the last Euros against Spain, because I lived in Spain. As soon as the game ended, I had to go and sit in Puerta del Sol, the center of Madrid, surrounded by Spanish people celebrating. And it was just like the world passed me by, and I wanted to be in any other capital city in that moment, but where I was. And it was just really, I really felt like it was the moment. You know, it was like, on a selfish perspective, I'd moved to Spain. It was England against Spain. This was the moment. This is how it was supposed to end. And again, the answer was no. David, for you, what England moment shocked you most? What frustrated you more than any other?
There's so many. I was there at Wembley in 1973 when there was the England-Poland game, the famous Tomaszewski, who Brian Clough described as a clown, and he put in a man of the match performance. Very, very frustrating. Mark alluded to that goal that Michael Owen scored against Argentina, round of 16, 98. Great moments. You remember the Gascoigne goal in Euro 96, that one that stands out. The problem is, for every England game, like when they beat Holland 4-1 in Euro 96, which I think was it a group game or quarterfinal? I don't know. For every England game where they really excite you with a 4-1, there's 8 or 9 games like we saw. I know it was a friendly last night, but like we saw against New Zealand. Yeah. And when you've been watching it for so many years, you just have, I mean, I'm exuding traits of a miserable old git, but it is so much like watching City. They raise your expectations and they dash them. I mean, look, do you realize it'll be 9 years in December since the night against Man United. Now, I know we beat West Ham in the Cup, what was it, 3 years ago, but nights like City beating Man United are like nights like England beating Holland. They're few and far between. And we do enough to keep the interest going in between times. But there's so many games that are beige, like Magnolia on the wall. You know, they're non-inspiring. And you're right, Tuchel, you know, we've only got to win one of the group games to get into the next stage of the competition. And I haven't worked out yet how they're going to get the best 8 third place teams. What are the criteria? Is it goal difference? Is it world ranking? Because there's going to be lots of games where...
Is it head to head?
Is it head to head? I haven't seen that listed anywhere. What's the criteria? Because 3 group games each team has got. You know, there's going to be a lot of teams that will win one, draw one, and lose one.
It's points and then goal difference, I believe.
I think it's feasible. What happens if they match? I can see that happening.
It's going to basically, when there's like a long list of things it comes into, but essentially, as long as you've got a plus goal difference and 3 points, they reckon you've got like a 97% chance.
Yeah.
The challenge with it is that when you look at often planning the World Cup draw, depending on the third place teams, depends on where they go, depends on who you play. So a lot of things change. Those third place teams are actually pretty important to the draw. I was doing a couple of brackets earlier on, and in one particular case, it was like France v Germany in the I think it was the last 16. Whereas as soon as you change the third place teams, that doesn't happen anymore. So it's quite impactful who plays who in that respect. And I think that's where this tournament will leave a lot to be desired, because it's not easy for fans to follow.
If they want to have a number of matches being played, they could have had 8 groups of 4. 8 groups of 4, and the top 2 teams in each group going through to the round of 16. Keep it simple.
This is what fans have always enjoyed, because you knew the group A played B, C played D, and you knew what happened as the tournament went through. This time, it's so difficult to do that you know more or less who you're going to get at the business end of the tournament, but it's not as simple as, oh, this is the team that we're definitely going to get in the next round. It can be quite complex in that, and it's one of those that we have to let it play out, because growing the game in a way is a good thing, but the World Cup should be 32 teams because it's the perfect mathematics. And when it goes to 64, that's just too many sides. Now, Mark, I'll come to you first of all on this one. Cult players, personal favorite players from non-England teams that you've enjoyed watching over the years at World Cups and European Championships.
Oh God, that's a difficult one. I think I enjoy watching Dennis Bergkamp, play for the Dutch, and a lot of the Dutch players, because they were revered in the 70s. Cruyff, Nayskins, Harry Hahn. I mean, especially, I'll never forget Harry Hahn's goal against Italy in what turned out was effectively the semi-final in 1978, and it was a second round robin group. I think that's difficult, really. I mean, if you look, it probably one of the best performances in the World Cup in the modern era has got to be Lionel Messi in the last World Cup, who've more or less carried Argentina to the final after losing the first game against Saudi Arabia. Remember, in 2022, in a tournament that was played in November and December, which just seems crazy now. The football season was abridged because of that. You had a truncated season, but I'd say I think the performance that impressed me most were probably Lionel Messi's in the last World Cup, because he dragged the nation's expectations along and got to the final and beat what was a fantastic France side, on penalties in the end, in a game which saw Kylian Mbappe equal to Jeff Hurst's hat-trick. So Lionel Messi for me in 2022.
I often think of those players that kind of burst onto the scene, like James Rodriguez style for Colombia, and how incredible he was. And one player I like was Wesley Sneijder in 2010, simply because every other at that kind of player was dropping further back on the pitch, and he went the other way and became a genuinely attacking number 10. And he basically carried that Dutch side with a lot of help from Robben, and they were kind of going up until the World Cup final, the one team that I felt like could stop Spain. But in the end, Spain were so magnificent and so much better than everybody else. They basically brought in the era of tiki-taka because it just works so effectively under that Barcelona-Spanish hybrid that was essentially just keep the ball, rotate the ball, pass it around, exhaust the opposition, and then score at the end. And it took 5 or 6 years. It took a whole process for essentially Atletico teams, Leicester teams to begin to nullify that. But in 2010, I really enjoyed Sneijder. What about you, Adam? Which players for you grabbed your imagination?
Difficult to name one. I think the original Ronaldo growing up was always just absolutely unplayable at times, and great to watch. I would say a lot of sort of South American players, even if you go back before Romario, Pele, before that. I know that was way before my time, but you look back at those type of players. I think Mark touches on Messi. I think that's the most obvious one. And then maybe I got to admit the Spanish side, the 2010 Xavi, Iniesta, absolutely exceptional throughout that tournament. So maybe Bergkamp as well, 98, like Mark touches on his goal. That's one of the best World Cup goals for me. So it's a bit of a mashed up answer, Dave. I'm not sure I can give you one, but it would probably be in and around those.
No, perfect. Because you trigger the memories. When you mention the player, people have the image of either a goal or something they've done. So it's a great answer. Now, David, I know you have to leave soon and the inmates take over the asylum, but I have a question for you, because I don't feel like really, well, at least me and Adam cannot answer this. 1970s Brazil side, 2010 Spain side, all things being equal, who wins?
Well, that's difficult. I mean, football, what a gap. Was it 40-year gap you're talking about there, 1970 to 2010, so fitness levels and everything. I think for sheer vibrancy, you'd have to say the Brazil side of 1970. We were talking about that Brazil-Italy final there, and I can picture it now, that winning goal for Brazil, where I can't remember, one of the guys, a languid sort of style up front. Not Jairzinho, no, one of the midfielders, Tostão. There we go, that's the one, Tostão. And that fourth goal, he just rolls the ball to the right. And I think it's Carlos Alberto just comes in and whacks it. Bit like McCrory scored a goal like that, I have to say. And I remember thinking that at the time, where Carlos Alberto runs onto it in his stride and hits it. And it's just about 4 inches off the ground, and it just goes in the corner, and that wraps it up. And, Italy were a good team then as well. They had people like Riva up front. That was a good tournament. And 78, Mark alluded to it earlier, the Argentinian team, where it spawned Ricky Villa and Ozzy Ardiles, who came across to play football in this country. I think there was another one, Tarantini, who ended up at Birmingham City for a short period. Mario Kempes, and that game, again, God, this is 48 years ago, but the ticker tape with Argentina winning that was that was memorable. But back to your original question, I think the Brazil side, because they had everything, but the Spain team, they were good as well, but not quite in the same league.
I think that the thing is with the Spanish side of 2010, it's simply because they were so magnificent. It's the fact that they did 1-0 their way to a World Cup win, basically in the knockout stages, because it was almost too easy for them because they were that good. And if you think about it, they won 3 trophies in 3 tries. They went Euros, World Cup, Euros. And it's not often that you see a goalkeeper in Casillas at the end of the 2012 game saying, "Referee, blow the whistle, have some respect for our opponents." That's how superior they were as a team. They were truly magnificent, that Spanish team. And I don't like the era of football they brought in, because it moved away from entertainment, shall we say. But you can't argue with how skilled they were. You will do well, Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta. You won't find a better midfield than that. David Villa, even Fernando Torres. They capped Villa as a left back, for goodness sake. They were incredible players in and around that side. And there is a reason why other teams have tried to emulate it, because it makes sense. You have possession of the ball, but it's also very difficult to create that culture in 5 minutes.
You've also got to remember that the Dutch had a particular way of trying to stop them in the 2010 World Cup final, which was so.
Exactly.
And you had somebody like Johan Cruyff, of course, who had managed Barcelona, very big in Catalan culture, saying that Dutch were playing anti-football. And I think it was it De Jong, Nigel De Jong, that was sent off for his side kick into the chest. Was it?
He didn't get sent off, did he? He just got a booking.
Yeah, he just got a booking, and it was a horrible final for the Dutch.
That's what disappointed me more than anything, because they had the one-on-one with Rob M where Casillas saves it, and I spent that game wanting them to win because I understood what it meant from a football perspective. But at the same time, when you watch how the Dutch approached the final, you just feel like some countries are above that, and the Dutch with their orange, the fluorescentness, the magic, the country of Cruyff, for goodness sake. You expect better than how they approach that.
They almost dirtied the name of Dutch football, and trying to win the game.
They approached it. Yeah. Now, moving on, it's time to move on to England. First one looking back, and then looking forward. Adam, I think you'll be a good place to start with this one. How will history judge the era of Southgate?
I think as a whole, I think just never quite enough. I know a lot of probably what Tuchel does will be compared to Southgate before this tournament, but for me, I think Southgate did so well to, I guess, unite the squad, get everyone believing in England again, but ultimately, tactically, he just was not quite good enough for me. I feel as if though a lot of the stars aligned under him as well, which helped. And look, there would have been a long time before that. I've touched on it before about the games and how easy it was to relax watching England and all those things that come with it. But I think we would have obviously loved that. But I feel having got in those positions with him, I just feel we were not cutthroat enough. He wasn't decisive or tactically astute enough. And I just think that we'll never know if someone would have done it differently. But I think ultimately that's how he will be remembered, is he did brilliant. He got us back sort of in amongst it, and certainly as part of the conversation in those tournaments that he was involved, and got us believing again. But yeah, I think ultimately he will be remembered as I feel again. I know I've harped on a lot about Russia 2018 this podcast, but I really do feel that was such a missed opportunity. It
It
really
was so
was.
emotive, though, that one, especially in the semi-final, getting the lead. And in terms of Southgate, Adam, and I'll come to you, Mark, with the same question after. Do you think that Southgate sits above Venables and Robson in terms of English managers, or does he sit on the same table? Because he did it in more tournaments.
I think for me, probably, I think you'd have to say maybe at the same table. I wouldn't have him above. You're right. He did do it over more tournaments, but I think it's difficult to say. I think it was a different playing field, I guess, before him with Venables, and obviously Euro 96, similar. It was a missed opportunity, I guess, and like you said with Gaza, I still don't know how he didn't score it. But I think if I look back, maybe under those, we were beaten by better sides ultimately, and I think Southgate, I would say Euro against the final against Italy and the semi-final against Croatia in the tournaments, for me, I feel a better manager or a better tactician could have navigated those. And I know that's with a lot of hindsight and being wise after the event, but so I couldn't put him higher than those. I'd have to say you've got to respect what he's done. So for me, same table, but yeah, at best.
There are just moments sometimes in the last final against Spain with Palmer. We just equalised. Spain are wobbling. We get a throw in and we take like 7 years to take it, and then we end up from attacking back to our own keeper. And I know it's really simplistic, but that was the moment that the final was lost. We had Spain struggling, and we gave them a foothold again. And as a manager, you have to recognize those moments. And that's why, personally, I agree with you that he's on the same table, despite the fact that he did it more often, because he provided magical moments.
Yeah.
But sometimes he had the things in his favor, such as the draw, such as the teams that we played. And
I would say so.
Complex. He did far from terribly. He did amazingly, but something just felt like it was missing. Mark, do you agree with us, or are we being
I think history could judge Gareth Southgate really well. We used to get into the finals of tournaments. We hadn't been in the final of the tournament for 46 years when we got 45 years when we got to final Euro 2020 and 2021. Always funny to say that, but because of COVID, and then of course get into the semis in 2018 and another Euro final. It's difficult. It's difficult to win tournaments, and I think he probably wasn't decisive enough in the games against Croatia. That was a big opportunity missed in 2018, but we got there. Opportunity missed possibly especially in the final against Italy. I think we could have gone on to win that if we'd have been a little bit more decisive. There was no shame in losing to Spain, who were probably the team of the tournament we lost in 2024. But like you said, it does come down to very fine margins when you score an equaliser in a game that you may have been dominated against, and that gives you the chance to go 2-1 ahead and close the game out. But the problem is, it's very difficult to win tournaments. And we're going into a tournament where it's going to be extremely humid. Teams will pat their defence, in games. What you watched against New Zealand, you might watch in the Panama game or Croatia game, and who the other team England have got their group is. In Ghana, it's not as simple to break those teams down. Slow, laborious build up. There's not going to be a lot of high intensity. There's got to be the high press that we see in the Premier League, and it's going to be very, very difficult. It could be a very difficult slog just to get out of the group. So I think history will judge Gareth Southgate really well, and again, we could be judged on the Southgate years because he got us into the final and semi-finals of tournaments. It might be people, sticking people's craw to say so, but going deep in tournaments is something that another England manager might not do, and then we'll be yearning for the days of Southgate. It's like that, very cutthroat.
I think there are so many factors when you weigh it all up. I mean, it's in the Americas, essentially. It's on North American soil. It's extremely hot for most of the games, like you said. the way the
But it's
Premier
32
League.
degrees last night. 32 degrees
Well, they
centigrade,
have
wasn't
water
it?
breaks for
Crazy.
a reason. You know, it's after a very long, hard Premier League slog, which other countries don't necessarily get. You know, they get their winter breaks. Quite often, teams will manage their sides. If you look at like some of the Portuguese players with PSG, for example, they've been rested quite often. Most of the English players don't get that luxury, and they don't get a break for winter. It In terms of intensity levels, they're not going to be able to play at an intense level, but everything's working against England in that respect. So, Adam, what's par in this tournament? Is it win or bust, win or failure for Tuchel? Is that how it works?
I mean, ultimately, Tuchel's been brought in to win it. I
Yeah.
guess that's why we've gone down the route we have in appointing a German. So for me, that has to be what he's judged on, whether that's fair or not. Like you said, I think the heat and everything is going to be a huge factor, not just for us, but for many sides. I struggle to see how I'm not convinced we'll win it, but I think you don't employ someone like Thomas Tuchel for me if you aren't going to really judge that on how he does in terms of for me, he's there to, or was brought in to try and win it. And that's why we've gone with that sort of elite manager that's won a Champions League. So I think that realistically, I'm expecting, I would probably say around quarters. But I guess I would say ultimately he does need to try and deliver.
Why do you think they extended the contract in February to the next Euros? Is that not slightly mixed messaging? If you've brought in a guy for a World Cup and then in February you say, you know what, we're going to extend you regardless of your performance to the next Euros.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that, to be honest with you, Dave. I don't think there's also, it's particularly at international level, I don't think there's necessarily a need for it, because you should judge case like tournament by tournament, really.
Exactly.
I mean, if we go back to our very own Roy, and you look at the what happened in the 2014 World Cup, I wouldn't have kept him on beyond that. And then obviously we know the rest with Iceland and so on. But and obviously it happened with Southgate as well. And I think just to go back to your moment about Southgate, I think you used the perfect example for that Spain final, because ultimately he would freeze when in the bigger moments, the real crucial moments. And I think looking at that Spain game, we were second best all night. So then to get back in the game and have the tide turn slightly, that's when you need to act. But yeah, I think going back to Tuchel and I think it is mixed messages, but I also think it's the fact that there's not any real sort of succession plan or any other sort of strong candidates that would necessarily be an obvious choice for the fit. I think international football is very different for a manager, and a lot of the better managers want to be in the day-to-day at club football. So I think it probably gives both sides some assurance or some security. But yeah, for me, I didn't see the need, or haven't seen the need yet to extend that.
And especially as watching England, it may change in future qualifiers of what they have planned. But as it is currently, qualifying is it's a given. You can't judge anything on that, and it just felt like a very odd time. Mark, what about you? What's par for you? What's an acceptable failure, shall we say?
Probably quarterfinals. I mean, England should get out of their group first or second. I mean, I think I saw one of the prediction podcasts yesterday, and it has us getting to the semi-finals and losing to Portugal, according to Jamie Carragher. But I think quarterfinals would be acceptable. As England's, as long as the football looks good and we're scoring some goals and we look competitive, I think the quarterfinals. But I mean, my dread is that we will struggle we'll get a draw in the opening game. You get a draw in the opening game against Croatia, and then it's the next game against Panama is a must-win game, and then you finish a second and third in third place, and then you don't know who you're going to get in the next phase. Just go back to '86 in Mexico when I think we finished third after losing our first game against Portugal, then drawing with Morocco.
Yeah,
it's going to be a different style of football again, which frames everything. I think is a difficulty, and I think we got a taste of that last night. But yeah, for me, I think it would be quarterfinals. Of course, we got knocked out by France in the last tournament in Qatar, despite giving an opportunity to get back in it at 2-2, and then Harry Kane missing that penalty when we scored one earlier. And again, England not seizing those moments, Adam. You know, when they had the opportunities, and then the elderly Olivier Giroud scoring the winning goal. Yeah, that's something we're going to have to do, I think. And Thomas Tuchel is probably a little bit more aggressive and a bit decisive than Gareth Southgate, but he's got to be in the position to do that in terms of what he gets in the group phase and our path, our route to the final.
Sure. Adam, who's the favourite that you expect to see in the final? Who's the big boy that you expect to make it?
I mean, as we've already discussed, the heat will play a factor, but I'm struggling to see beyond France. I know they had a poor result the other night against the Ivory Coast, but the depth of their squad is frightening. I mean, they're probably like us in a sense that defensively that's not their strength, but I would say going forwards, they've got so much. I think I would probably say whoever beats them will win it, I would say.
Okay, and Mark, the dark horse. Who do you see as the team that's slightly under the radar, underrated, that could give one of the bigger sides a bit of a nosebleed in the knockout stages?
I think Morocco again have got a very African Cup of Nations winners eventually. After I think the results was reversed against Senegal, is that right? I think
Yeah,
they got to be
kind of, yeah. Depends how you
yeah.
want to see it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think they would be a dark horse, or even Portugal. I think will probably be in the top five. But yeah, I think Morocco again could make a very strong showing and go quite deep in the tournament. If you look outside if you look outside of Europe, but I think Europe again will be masters of this tournament, and you can't look beyond France or Spain.
Sure. So what we're going to do now is a bit of a bracket predictor, okay? So basically what I've done is I've just taken a bit of a educated guess at the top two. The problem is that the third place one changes everything depending on the ones that go through. So I've done that. I've gone to the last 32, and then I've predicted who I think is going to win, and I've taken us to the last 16. This probably isn't going to be the last 16, but we're going to start here because generally speaking, you have your sides that you think are going to win. So we'll go through and we'll see the three of us. Each time, whoever gets the most votes qualifies, okay? So game number one, we have a juicy game. Germany versus France. Personally, or that game, I will be going for France. Adam, what's your prediction there?
Yeah, as I just said, I'd have to go France. Whilst you can never write off the Germans, to me, that looks like a as poor a German side or squad as I've seen in a while. So France every day for me.
Mark, how agree with us there on France?
Yeah, I don't think Germany have got a natural centre forward, and France. Yeah, you got to say France every time for me.
You know, I used to live in Spain, as people would know, and I was happy for them when they won. If Germany lose, it'll be nice to live here and watch them, just to understand a bit of pain. But, not to hold grudges against others or anything. Next one, Switzerland versus Morocco. Mark, what are your thoughts on that one?
Morocco again,
Morocco. Adam?
as I've alluded to.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Mark on that. I think Morocco might spring a little bit of a surprise.
Okay. Adam, this time you first. Brazil versus Norway. This one I found a bit of a tricky one because Norway have a few decent players, shall we say. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I would have someone like Norway as potential dark horses. They do have some players, but I think I would probably edge with Brazil for the heat. But although I don't think Brazil are going to have a strong tournament, but we'll go with Brazil in this instance.
I struggle to find Brazil. I think they have the name, but do they really have the side? I'm just not convinced. Mark, what do you think, first of all?
I think Brazil, because of their tournament nous, but Norway won all of their qualifying games in a group, including Italy, and you can't go against that. But no, I think Brazil tournament nous, they just scrape in. They always seem to find a way to go deep in tournaments. I mean, but you've only go back to 2014. in their own country, and they get to the semi-final. Neymar's on the bench, and they go and lose 7-1 to Germany in an absolutely incredible turnaround when it's 5-0 after about 25 minutes.
But
But
that
they
shows how
always
the,
go big, but they always seem to disappoint. There's a mystique, isn't there, about Brazil and Brazilian football, but it's not really backed up by their ability at this time. But yeah, I see him winning that.
well, I think that was one of the most shocking moments in it's certainly modern World Cup history, and it just shows you that vibes and emotions can get you so far in football, but an efficient machine, which that German team were, an incredible side that were, without necessarily having a superstar, they were all just a synergy of each other. They understood each other and they understood weaknesses, and boy, did they exploit that against Brazil. But I'm glad you two both picked Brazil, because it allows me to take the cowards away and say I would have picked Norway. I really would have picked them. But you two outvoted me. Brazil it is. Now, the next one, if everything looks like it does, Mexico versus England. Mark, you first. Do you see any reason to worry for England there?
There's always a reason to worry for England, and of course, this game would be in Mexico as well, wouldn't it? Probably be at the Azteca Stadium at altitude, but I think England would just have enough to get through. But yeah, it would be extremely difficult and white hot cauldron of Mexico in terms of the humidity and the background with the support. Yeah, but I think England would have just about enough. It'd probably be a more difficult game and deeper in the tournament against Mexico. But yeah, England for me.
Adam, it's a horrible game though, isn't it? If it came that way, having to go to one of the hosts' backyard is very unpleasant.
Yeah, but then ultimately, I guess you've got to beat the so-called better sides to win it. I think for me, it is a really, really difficult draw, and I think the heat, altitude, everything else that comes into it, I would probably predict a scrappy 1-0 England win. I would definitely back us against Mexico, even though it would be hard. I think it is the route we want to take, though. I think that's potentially the route we could get if we win the group, and I think that's the way. It's whilst it's less than ideal, it's also not the worst. So I would back us just to narrowly edge that one.
And you know how the World Cup is. It only takes one team to get a surprise result, and it just changes how the whole draw looks.
Yeah.
Now, one game I think is going to be an interesting one is Colombia versus Spain. You know, this is the beauty of the World Cup. There are some tasty matches quite early, and every round it's not. I mean, generally speaking, you can often get games where you think, well, I know who's going to win that one. But in World Cups, it's a lot trickier because it's so diverse at times. Once you get past the group stage, I don't see Spain losing that particular game against Colombia. Mark, what do you think?
No, I don't either. Spain for me, my favourites for the tournament.
So that's two votes for that one. Now, Adam, you get the honours for this one. Turkey versus Belgium. Turkey for me are my dark horse.
Yeah, I think I would probably edge with Belgium just on the basis Mark touched on Brazil's sort of tournament now. I would probably go with that in Belgium, purely not because Belgium are particularly strong in tournaments year, but they've certainly got to far more advanced stages than Turkey have. So I think you're right. I think Turkey, this is a better version of Turkey that's been in years gone by, without a doubt. But I would probably still edge Belgium on that one.
So you're going Belgium. I'm going to go Turkey. Mark, you get the final say.
I'm going to go Belgium.
Oh, you two are going against me. This is unnecessary. Fine, Belgium it is. Right. Mo Salah's Egypt versus Argentina. Personally, I think that, as has been proven many times in World Cups, when you try to run it back, you suffer because your team is older. They've already won it. There aren't many teams in World Cup history that go back to back. It's difficult to do. Somebody's going to get Argentina. Messi's older now. Will it be Egypt? I'm not sure. I'm going to go Argentina here because I don't see it being Egypt. I don't think they'll go far, but I think Argentina will win this one. Adam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Argentina will have way too much. As you said, I don't think they'll win it again, but they'll definitely be in the conversation. I think they'll have way too much for Egypt.
Okay, Mark, do you see Egypt in any way making any inroads there?
No, not at all, unfortunately. Sorry, Mo. It's got to be Argentina for me.
Okay, it's a no-no for Momo. So, last game of the last 16, Canada versus Cristiano Ronaldo's and a lot of other players, Portugal. High expectations for that Portugal team. Mark, can you make any argument here for Canada overcoming Portugal?
No, I can only see Portugal. I think can they drop Cristiano Ronaldo, the big ego, really fantastic player, but I think he's far too old. You know, it was it 42 years old now, 41 to be playing playing for the national side. It's almost on a par with trying to get Neymar in, although he's not his age. But no, I think they got far too many good players to beat. Far too many good players, and they'll beat Canada. I think have they got that Southampton player Kyle Larin?
Larin, yeah, the
Yeah,
striker.
playing up front, who just signed, didn't he, from Real Mallorca? Perhaps he can get the manager to do a little bit of spying ahead of the game and see, if that'll give him a tactical advantage.
Is it the Canada? Is it Alfonso? Is it Davis from Bayern Munich that they have? They have one
I
very,
think he's
very.
struggling with injury, isn't he?
I
think he's struggling to be fit for the group stages, if not the tournament. But yeah, he's the main guy, isn't
He's
he?
their man of everything, isn't he?
Yeah.
And I think with Ronaldo, it's a curious one because this is probably the best overall Portuguese side that he's been in. But does he provide answers to problems that he provides? Because he's surrounded by an all-star cast. You know, you look at people like Raul Neves and Bitana. These are high-quality players. Never mind Bruno Fernandes as well. There's a lot of good players that Portugal have. But is Ronaldo the right one that helps? I mean, PSG with their high pressing way, as an example, do you see Ronaldo as part of that? It's a tough one. It's a really tough question. And Cristiano will be desperate to win a World Cup. You know, does his legacy need a World Cup? I'm not so sure, but it certainly helps his story to have one.
They say to be one of the greats, and then of course you got some like Lionel Messi, who of course they were just alternating the Ballon d'Or winners, weren't there, between Ronaldo and Messi? It seems over like a 10-year period, and now Messi has achieved that. I think it's too late for Ronaldo.
No,
I think
exactly.
Portugal could get to the semi-finals, but can't see him winning it.
On to the quarterfinals, and if my magical group stage and third places are correct, we get some hell of a quarterfinal list. Adam, you get the honors first. The France favourites versus the Moroccan dark horses. Can you see Morocco causing an upset there? Personally, I think just maybe.
I think it'll be a closer game than a lot of people would imagine, but I would still think France will be too strong.
I read something this week that of all the players in La Liga, Mbappe has the lowest defensive contributions of any player in La Liga. And if you look across Europe, he doesn't contribute defensively at all. France have lost Griezmann. He doesn't play anymore. He's retired. Mark, do you think that France are still as powerful as they were? Do you think that they are at risk of an upset here?
I think up front, you can't argue with against France with Ousmane Dembele and Kylian Mbappe, and I think they got Ryan Cherki in their midfield as well. I think they lost Ekitike is probably a big blow to them, but I think they got more than enough up front. It's probably their defence that could be found out, but I'm not likely to see them implode because of the depth that they got in the squad. So in that quarterfinal, yeah, France for me. I can't see Morocco causing giving them any trouble. Although it was quite close in the semi-final, wasn't it? In Qatar 4 years ago. But yeah, it'll be France for me.
I think that game is going to be genuinely close. I'm not sure about France. They seem to have this way of playing knockout football, and it's essentially about boring people to tears. They will literally take penalties almost at times, it feels like, because they have that belief in themselves that they'll win every time. And I think that some of their parts are capable of so much more. But there is a vibrancy about Morocco, the way that they play on that emotional edge. And I wouldn't be surprised if they really give France a game, but I do think France will in the end overcome them. Now, Adam, you first this time. Spain and Belgium. Do you see Belgium offering much of a threat to Spain at this stage?
I would have to go with Spain. I think that'll be a good game, but I think ultimately sort of beyond Belgium's starting 11, I think that's where they might get caught out the later they go into the tournament, and when there's probably more reliance on the squad. I don't think they possess the same quality as Spain. So I would actually back Spain comfortably on that one.
I agree with you. I think Spain. I mean, the thing is with Spain, it really comes down to Yamal and Nico Williams. If those two players are firing, anybody beating Spain will be a challenge. If those two players are just off form a little bit, they go from a great side to a good side. And
Yeah.
it really rests on those two, but I think that Spain will have enough.
Mm.
Now, Mark, you first for this one. Friday the 10th of July, 6 p.m., a day off that many people will want to take. England versus Brazil, the blockbuster of the quarterfinals, because it just is. Who do you see winning that one?
Oh right, I didn't see. I saw potential for quarterfinal of England versus Morocco. So I did wonder who we were going to get when you talked about this route when Morocco playing France. I think England could beat Brazil. I think England have got more talent in their squad. I don't think Brazil have very good front players. Yeah, I'm going with England. If we get that far, it'll be because we deserve to, and I think that we'd be showing. I hoped it would be because we're showing momentum and not looking for Eric Dyer moments like 2018.
Now, Adam, understand what you're about to say. You're about to commit to England for reaching a semi-final. Do you think they will beat Brazil?
Well, that day is also my birthday.
Oh,
Dave,
it's
so
done. It's done.
I'll be off I'll have the day off by default. But yeah, I can't go against England on my birthday. If that's how it pans out, that's almost written in the stars, right? So but no, in all honesty, I would actually back us against this Brazil
Yeah.
side. I would. I think we can beat them whatever stage of the tournament that were to land. But yeah, in this instance, I would fancy us against Brazil. I really would.
Sure. And then the game that when I did this earlier and I saw this quarterfinal, it didn't dawn on me at first, and then it like hit me like, wow, stars aligning moment. The two greatest players of our generation, and when we talk about great players, they reset standards in what it means to score goals. A 20-goal a season striker at elite level used to mean something. Because of these two, now it's just seen as average. You have to be like 35, 40, 45, 50 to be considered an elite striker. And that is the game of Argentina versus Portugal. Personally, when it comes down to these two, I think that Portugal will win. And I'm laying my flag right there. Mark, Argentina or Portugal?
I think this is Portugal's moment in this tournament. I think the deeper they go in the championships, the better opportunity that they'll have. Without Cristiano Ronaldo, I think he's just somebody that probably be on the periphery. I think they got much better players in the squad than him. I'd say Portugal to edge out Argentina.
Adam, agree?
Yeah, I would. I think obviously a lot of it depends on how they utilize Ronaldo, but I would say they're in serious conversation as to whether they're going to be in the mix to win it. I really do think they're going to have a good tournament, so I would definitely back them to beat Argentina. It's definitely the strongest Portugal side we've seen in a while. So yeah, I would.
Okay, so we have a curious case of 4 European sides making it to the semi-final.
Oh, that's no favoritism then.
No. And the more things change, the more things stay the same. These lots of teams have a long history together, shall we say. First one, Mark, you first this time. France versus
God.
Spain. That is a blockbuster of blockbusters, as it should be in a World Cup semi-final. Who are you picking there?
I take Spain. They're my pre-tournament favourites. So yeah, I'm going for Spain.
Okay, interesting. Adam?
I can't go against France now, can I? I backed them to win it, so I think I would have to. I'm going to stubbornly stick with France.
Well, this leaves me with a problem. On a non-football perspective, my wife can probably hear this in the other room, and if I pick France here, I'm sleeping in the spare bed tonight. So I'm not sure it's wise. But from a football perspective, I think Spain will win. I really see Spain beating France, and it comes down to those two players, Nico Williams and Yamal. And if you get to this level and Spain are in the semi-final, that means that those two players are firing. Yamal makes an argument for the best player in the world, and when he's complemented by Nico Williams, they are very, very difficult to stop.
Is
So
Yamal still injured at the moment? I know he's been
he's
carrying an injury.
he's give or take. The first game is not necessarily guaranteed, but he should be good for the knockout stages at least. But they don't see it being an issue with him. I think the main question is that first game, but he sees himself as being good to go in that respect. So I'm taking Spain. So Adam, you were overruled on this particular occasion. Now the other semi-final, the semi-final of the longest military treaty in history, England versus Portugal. Adam, you get the honors this time. Is this the moment it comes to an end, or are we going to see another final for England?
Unfortunately, Dave, I think this is the moment where it does all end in tears. I think we've got a bit of a. They seem to have a bit of a hold over us, Portugal, in tournaments years gone by. Well, World Cup and Euros, if we're going back 2006, 2004. I think they'll be too strong for us. I think we'll be, as Mark said, if we'd got to that point, we definitely deserved it. But I think Portugal probably will be too strong for us on the night.
I see it that if we've gone to Mexico and beat Mexico in their own backyard, overcoming Brazil. Yes, this Brazil team is not the greats of the past, but just beating the name that is Brazil and everything that they stand for in football will give that England side so much confidence and so much self-belief. I really think they have it in them to beat that Portugal side, because that Portugal side have demons of their own. They will have that debate every game to play Cristiano or not to play. If Cristiano Ronaldo is playing, I think at this point it may do us a favor. If he's on the bench, it's a different question. But I think that we will have enough to overcome Portugal. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was on penalties. It really wouldn't, because it's going to happen somewhere. And if it's going to happen, I could see it being here. Mark, are you going to break English hearts, or are you going to back England to make the final?
I'm going to back England to make the final if they get that far, because it would be because Harry Kane would have undoubtedly exceeded Gary Lineker's 10 World Cup goals in 1986, across 1986 and 1990. It'll because we probably have seen Jude Bellingham, do his impression of a Rolls Royce and elegantly cruise through games, building up momentum, but mainly because Harry Kane will be scoring goals. And like you said, if we go and have beaten Mexico at altitude, then have beaten Brazil, the very thought of beating Brazil, we've built up enough momentum to have just enough in the tank to beat Portugal this time. I think we'll get to a World Cup final. We might not win it, but I think if in that scenario we get to the final, and then all our hopes are on the line, Thomas.
So to summarize, Adam, you've gone for a France-Portugal final, and we're going to keep that on record to see if it gets there, because you deserve the kudos if it makes it. But in terms of being voted, and this is a democracy, it's an England-Spain final. That's a tough one. That's a very, very tough game, England versus Spain. We've seen it before. We know that they don't have the same baggage of weight. Spain can play that game with a degree of flexibility because they already have that trophy to their name. They've been there, they've done it. That England team will be carrying so much baggage at this point because it becomes real. Despite that head of steam, Spain will also have a head of steam at this point. I don't see England beating Spain in the final. That's where my head starts to overcome my heart. For me, I think it gets to the final, and I think that Spain will just have a little bit too much, and it depresses me to say it, and I find it really hard. But my vote goes for Spain. Mark, no, because I have a feeling. I'm not sure which way you're going to go. I think no, Mark, who are you going to pick?
I think my heart says England, but my head says Spain. In terms of ability, and then being my pre-tournament favourites, I think it'd be very difficult. But I mean, God, yeah, the expectation. Can you imagine actually getting to a World Cup final? Yeah. Get into a World Cup final after 60 years would be just an incredible feat. But then to lose the final, and we might not get to another one for another 60 years that none of us will see. Just the sheer expectation of being, every be dragging to Jeff Hurst would be on every news broadcast possible, because I think he's the only member of the squad who's still alive.
Yeah.
from 1966. But the sheer expectation, I think we could play a low block, pack the midfield and just aim for penalties. And having a German as manager could see us scrape a penalty win, but unfortunately, I've got to let my head roll my heart on this occasion and say, in that scenario, Spain. Sorry, everybody.
I think it just comes down to the fact that it's going to be hot. It's going to be in New York, middle of summer, 4 p.m. It's not going to be a fast-paced game, which is realistically one of England's best shots, unless we go the Arsenal corner route. I can just see it being hard for England to get the ball. I can just see Spain playing the rotation game. As much as they're not a tiki-taka side anymore, I can just see them being comfortable with that because it's in their DNA. It's what they grow up with the ball at their feet. And I find it hard to see how we get past that. Adam, give us some hope. Tell us that we're being too pessimist here.
No, I think you've been very, very optimistic throughout. Do you know what? I'd love to be wrong on a France-Portugal final, and I'd absolutely love to see us there. I do, and I'm not just going with you guys because what you said, it reflects my feelings. I think ultimately, I think Spain in that scenario would probably have too much for us. I think all factors involved. I mean, as you said though, to get to a World Cup final, Mark, I mean that the sort of excitement and everything that would come with it, and it would be new for so many people. We'd be going into uncharted territory for many. There's always a chance, and I think if there's anyone, and I know we touched on Tuchel earlier and probably the confusion around the extension of a contract. I think he is the type of manager or coach rather that would be able to nullify that Spain threat. With that being said, I would probably still narrowly have to go for Spain and break my own heart, to be honest.
Bueno, felicidades España. Let's hope not. Their last celebration in Cibeles, I could hear it from my house. I could hear all the chants. No matter how much I shut my windows and tried to shut it out, it was. If it would have been any other team but England in the final, I would have gone just for the cultural experience. But it's just. For me, well, to sum up, to close, for me, like watching England in the all of the summer tournament, it's like a religious cultural experience. It's passed on, like it comes from your friends. It's passed on with your family. Like, if England win a tournament, the first person I'll be like call is my dad. I'll think of my grandfather. It's like it's that emotive experience of everyone, and it's almost religious, like it's cult, like it just grabs you and. Game one of all of them, and then game two, and it just builds and builds and builds. And yes, you want to see them playing well, but it's so much more than that when you watch these tournaments. You just so badly want to win, and it grabs you, and you want to feel that identity and connection. And it is okay to lose. I know it sounds silly, but it is okay. The how you lose does matter. I remember that team against Argentina in '98. Knowing that we were this close, and really that England team played fantastically against Argentina. And when they went down to 10 men, they gave absolutely everything, every step of the way. And you knew that team could give nothing more. And you walk away with it with a sense of pride, where there's been other ones, for example, the one against Germany in 2010, where yes, we had the goal disallowed, but it never felt close. It never felt near because it didn't feel like we deserved it because we were well behind the times. And that's what watching England does to you. It's an emotional experience because as the song goes, I know that was then, but one day it will be again. And you just want to experience that feeling and know how it feels from my perspective. Adam, is there anything you'd like to say to close?
I think you sum it up really well, but you're right. It grabs you, and I remember even going back as far as say Euro '96, World Cup '98 as well. For instance, I was young. I was at school. I remember the first group game was Tunisia, and that was actually during school time. And my dad's very pro football, very pro City. So fortunately, he pulled me out of school that day. So I remember coming in the day after and getting a bit of a dressing down from my head of year because even though my claims that I've been to the dentist, it didn't quite convince him. But you remember those moments and you remember those build-ups, and I've watched all of them with my dad. I've got a friend who I've watched now, I think more or less every tournament since 2004. Long suffering. You're very right in what you say, Dave. It is almost like a cult of religion that it just grasps you in a different way the day-to-day of City does.
Yeah.
The emotion that we all carry for City. I think that given these moments come around once every 4 years, and you can look back on all the history, all the tournaments gone by, the people that have been with you throughout that journey. I'm with you. I'm so desperate, so desperate for England to win it that you can't help but be so emotionally involved, and almost it's in a way where we're used to that disappointment. I thrive on the excitement that it brings and that hope and that expectation, because it does remind you why you love football. So here's to a hopeful, and hopefully, you never know if Tuchel can work his magic, but yeah, let's hope for a good tournament. And
oddly, I found that when England go out a bit earlier, like last 16 or quarterfinals, it makes you angry, but it gives you a bit of recovery time to enjoy the rest of the tournament.
Yeah.
But when England go out in the late stages, and then you have like City coming around like soon after, it's like emotionally, I can't do this yet. I need a little bit of time to recover from football because it's hurt me too much. Now, Mark, it's been wonderful to have you back. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
I hope you'll be a regular again. I know you've got things to do in life, etc. But it's been great to have you back, and you're a great presence here, and you're a calming, authoritative voice.
Oh, thanks very much.
Last words from you today, please, to finish the podcast.
Well, everybody, look forwards. Let's manage our expectations for the World Cup. Let's get behind the nation like we normally do. We're going to get a feast of football that we only see in like every 4 years. Enjoy the other nations playing, drink it all in, but please, drink responsibly.
Cool. Good words. Okay, everybody, that's us done for today. From an England perspective, I imagine the next podcast will be after the group stage, once we know who's playing who, to look at what's happened so far and how we're feeling about England. From a Bristol City perspective, I imagine they'll be coming once Gubala's giving his first press conference, maybe once there's been a few initial moves in the transfer market. Essentially, once there's a moment where it's worth doing a podcast about City, we will do one. But in the meantime,
the fixtures are released.
Sorry. Oh, yes, very good point as well. And when the fixtures are released, we'll definitely have one to look through the fixtures. But in the meantime, I hope everybody enjoys the World Cup. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast.